Welcome to Storyteller, where I try to find the wildest story I can each week, and Teresa hears it all for the first time. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Teresa.
And do I have a story for you?
Ooh.
There are stories that begin with a scream. Others begin with silence. This one begins on a dark stretch of road just outside a quiet American town, the kind of road people only take when they're trying to get somewhere fast or trying not to be seen at all. Minutes later, a car flies into an emergency room unloading bay. Inside are 3 children, all gravely wounded. One fighting to breathe, one barely clinging to life, and one already slipping away. And their mother, screaming, "Somebody shot my kids." She says a stranger stepped out of the darkness. She says he flagged her down. She says he shot them without warning. At first, people believed her, because who would ever suspect a mother? What follows is a story that grips an entire nation, a case filled with contradictions, chilling calmness, media obsession, and questions that grow darker the deeper investigators look. And about the terrifying possibility that sometimes the safest place a child should be isn't safe at all. Over the next 3 episodes, we're unraveling a case that shocked America, divided a courtroom, and left investigators asking one haunting question: what really happened on that road that night? This is the story of Diane Downs. Have you heard of Diane?
I haven't, but I've heard of plenty of other cases like this that kind of...
Yeah, I'm really surprised. 1983, we're going back to the 80s. So that's when this happened, so.
Oh, because I was born in the 70s. You think I should know everything that happens in the 80s?
I figured you would remember this.
It was like 6.
Because I was going to say, because you're like 7. Yeah. So going way back to 1955, Willa Dean and Wesley Fredrickson married in 1954, and Willa Dean was just 17 and Wesley was 25, and members of a fundamentalist Southern Baptist church, just like the one they both had been raised in, when they welcomed their first child, Elizabeth Diane Fredrickson, who would go by Diane for the rest of her life, on August 7th, 1955, during a sweltering Phoenix summer. Sounds awful. I'm always like, we should go to Arizona. And I'm like, no.
Like during the winter, yeah.
Yeah. January.
Summer, no.
Yeah. Willa Dean, incredible name, first of all. Willa Dean was someone who understood that a wife should always demur to her husband, and she would follow this sentiment for the rest of her life. Willa Dean became pregnant with her second child almost immediately after Diane arrived. I literally think there's 9 months in between her 2 first kids. Yeah. And Diane would go on to say that Willa Dean, who was still a literal teenager when she had her, wasn't a great mother, and she always ignored Diane as she grew. Probably due to the constant pregnancies and always needing to cater to her husband before any of her children.
How many kids?
5 altogether.
Okay.
Yeah. You would think the way it started.
She was also 17.
Yes.
So before like 17, 18, she already was two kids in.
Yep. Mm-hmm. By 18, yeah.
Gross.
Diane would go on to slander both of her parents as she grew and into her adult years, saying that Willa Dean was always focused on her husband and never her children, and that was when their father did focus on Diane, like, because he wasn't super concerned with these. I mean, he was working. She was staying home. So,
yeah.
So Diane would say when he did focus on her, it was because he was molesting her.
I was going to say, God damn it.
She does recount this accusation in later years, but a lot of the research is really weird. Like, one thing is like, yeah, she recounted it, and other ones are like, no. So I don't really know what to believe on that front.
Okay.
So Diane sucks. So it could go either way. It doesn't seem like Wes was great either.
Possibly, but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not, did any of the other
none of. Yeah, I never saw anything about her siblings saying anything like that. So, and she said her parents always denied that any of that, and her parents always denied that nothing of the sort ever happened in their home. By the time Willa Dean was 25, she was a mother of 5. and the family moved around a lot for Wes's work. When pressed, Diane could remember good times, and all of these good times would have Willa Dean front and center doing fun things with her kids. But later, Diane would be like,
It never happened.
Yeah, so from trick-or-treating or going to the movies, or Willa Dean would teach her children how to sew and cook while they were all at home. But even after thinking of the good times, one would always walk away from Diane knowing that she felt her mother was lacking in her field, I guess. Wes seemed to have it out for Diane, though. He always singled her out and blamed her for things that weren't her fault. He would tell people, if something is broken, Diane did it. It's always Diane. Which we'll kind of remember that quote. The Fredericksons looked like the perfect family from the outward appearances, a mother and a father, 5 children, and they were all in church on Sunday and Wednesday nights. Diane would say that she never thought of her family as perfect because they never really interacted, like it was all for show, and then when they get back home, everyone is kind of hiding. Yeah.
They'll go to their prospective places and everything. Go to the bedroom.
Yeah, the children were always consumed with being good so that they did not feel Wes's wrath, and Willa Dean was consumed with keeping her home perfect as to not feel Wes's wrath. So,
was he abusive?
I think he was...
or was he just strict?
Yeah, strict, and I think he would blow up if things weren't done to his specifications. So it was a very ingenuine setup, is what I got from her growing up. School wasn't great for Diane either. As I said, they moved a lot, and that meant that she was frequently the new kid and was often picked on because of it. Also, Diane, who would become quite the looker, I don't know if that's it. She's almost like a chameleon. Every single picture you see of Diane Downs looks like a different person. I'm not joking. Like from hairstyle to hairstyle within 1 year, she always looks different. But she is striking, I think is probably... Yeah. I wouldn't be like, you're like a classical, but she's very striking. And again, very chameleon. I'll put all her pictures on social media, and it's very interesting because you're like, damn, now, was this in the same year? Because you look like 2 different people. Oh my God. But when she was young, she was a bit of an ugly duckling. She especially remembered her bushy eyebrows that, from the sounds of it, could have competed with Eugene Levy's. I guess they were just like...
amazing.
And the conservative family she was growing up in did not encourage vanity, and she had no idea there was anything that could be done for eyebrows. And assumed in her early years that her eyebrows were just a permanent defect. She was like, don't know what to do about these. Also due to her parents' fundamentalist beliefs, Diane was forbidden to wear fashionable clothes or makeup, and kids bullied her for her Mennonite chic wardrobe. Like, they're like, love your long denim skirt, Diane. The inattentive mom, the extremely strict father, the environment in which children were not allowed to make some mistakes, and the long skirts and high neck blouses were the perfect environment for rebellion to grow, and Diane was the perfect candidate. I think I mentioned this later, but she may have been bullied at school, but she is so smart. She is a very smart person, and she always excelled in her studies at school. Okay. So the introverted child would quietly watch and listen to people, how they acted and what they said and how they reacted. So she was very quiet as a child and kind of almost terrorized, and she really took this time to internalize what about her life growing up she hated and what she liked, and never vocalizing her thoughts, but keeping them inside as an internal Rolodex about how different things would be when she became an adult. So she just kind of, a lot going on for a kid inside. So she later said that all of this was a way of survival, but I think she may have learned during her observations of people and hoarding how drastically different her life would be when she was older, made Diane adept to using her words to get what she wanted, and her eventual adulthood was a powder keg waiting to explode after childhood of never being able to step out of line. So I think it just was like she was just biding her time, and then when she felt any sort of freedom, she went poof. Yeah. So we'll see that. Just something to keep in mind, because I think her childhood really unfortunately shaped how she acted when she was older. So in 1967, when Diane was in 7th grade, Wes came home going on and on about seeing some guy on the street with the most beautiful head of hair. And he forced Diane to cut her hair short and perm it to match the guy. The guy her dad thought had beautiful hair. Apparently no one in the family asked Wes about that. They were like,
that was odd.
So weird, yeah. Or thought it was weird. Like, no one's like, so you want the girl to... Anyways, so he makes Diane... her little afro going. Diane's peers at school thought she sure as fuck looked weird, though. And she showed up looking freshly electrocuted during a time period when the style was like slick, stick straight, and parted down the middle.
She was like little orphan Annie.
Yes.
Just like...
Yes. Yeah, actually the book that I read on this, they described her as orphan Annie. And I was like... Oh, that's a tough time, 7th grade, to get a bad haircut. The only good part of school, as I said, is that Diane excelled at her studies. Only a hair away from being considered genius level on some tests that she'd take throughout her life. So she was very smart. Finally, at 14, Diane was allowed to attend a charm school that her parents paid for, where she learned how to pluck her eyebrows and put on makeup.
She learned eyebrows stuff.
I was like, oh my God.
That's so weird. Why would they send her to that,
I know.
Like what happened?
How bad were these eyebrows?
Yeah.
That's what, if your eyebrows are so bad that your fundamentalist parents are like, you need to learn what to do with this.
Yeah, like did the neighbors pull them aside and have like some sort of intervention and be like, you need to send her to charm school?
Yeah, I never saw like, did she find out about charm school and like beg them, or was it? I have no idea. But
it seems odd.
It's very odd.
All strict and like you said, like the Mennonite wardrobe basically and everything, and just be like, oh, charm school.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, that was out of left field, but thank God it sounds like so. She had terrible self-esteem and therefore still felt much like an ugly duckling. But it wasn't that much later she started to notice that boys at church were noticing her. So apparently charm school really worked out.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
she was like, hey.
She was phasing out of the ugly duckling.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Probably losing some baby fat, you know. Diane realized also she liked that attention. She was like, okay. It was about this time that a marked change came over Diane almost overnight. She had always been silent and introverted, always trying to fly under the radar to avoid punishments at home. But now she would not shut the fuck up. Apparently, everyone's like, darn. Silence was replaced with a certified yapper behavior. And she, from the time she got up to the time she went back to sleep, I guess she was dead. And I feel like I was like that, so I'm like, girl, get it out.
I think every kid goes through that, but it seems like they normally go through that at a younger age.
Yeah, yes, that's what I was kind of thinking. I feel like it's like an 8-10 kind of thing. Yeah, anyways, so at home she still remained obedient listener when it came to her father's rules. And one of the biggest rules was no crying. Like, I guess it was
There's
really...
no crying at baseball.
Yes, in the Fredricksons' home, yeah. Perhaps this rule and the pressing down of her emotions is what started Diane's lifelong erratic displays of emotion throughout her life. I mean, I think the best word I can think after learning everything about Diane is manic. I think manic is probably a good she's doing the most. Yeah. For the rest of her days, Diane would be known to swing wildly from depressed to happy to scorn to elation, and she never had any sense of how she was coming across to those around her. So she didn't know how to control her emotions, no matter what situation she was in.
Is it possible that she was just bipolar too?
She might have been. I mean, it doesn't sound like, later on there's some tests done and bipolar isn't one of the things that comes out, which is kind of shocking. But also I don't really know when bipolar was a thing, you know, when they finally recognized that. So that's something I'll look into. That's a good question, because I thought no one was like bipolar.
Well, I feel like it was like in the 70s, but back then it was manic depressive.
Yeah, and I still don't think that.
And it wasn't until, I want to say like the early 90s that they actually started
labeling it
bipolar.
Oh, yeah. But it definitely seems like, because it just seems like wildly swinging and she doesn't really have any control over it. So, yeah, emotional intelligence seemed to have been robbed from her throughout her childhood. So now we're in 1973. Steve Downs swaggered his way through the halls of Moon Valley High School in Phoenix, throwing his stocky 5'8" muscular frame in a pugnacious manner at anyone who dared look at his direction. I was like, he sounds like a bulldog. Like,
little arms.
He is kind of dishy. Actually, when you see Steve Downs, you're like, okay, I got her. A junior and 7 months older than Diane, Steve was broad-shouldered and ruggedly handsome, and even attracted looks from women who were twice his age. Like, he was pretty good looking. Diane was dazzled when this hottie with the body from across the street told her she was beautiful. So I don't know if he just noticed her one day or if they had just moved in, but it seems around this time, finally, these two have noticed each other. So Wes and Willa Dean hated him. Which only,
why?
Yeah, I know, which only, of course, made Steve Downs that much more perfect in Diane's eyes. By the time Diane was 16, her and Steve were sleeping together regularly. In 1972, Steve joined the Navy, but he and Diane did not break up. She was just waiting for him, kind of thing. Instead, she was left at home to fight with her father constantly. Diane was raised in a home where it was taught that a woman should never control a man. So she thought her best bet in life was to find a strong man who seemed nothing like Wes. She was like, okay,
yeah,
I don't have, like, it was never in her realm of thoughts to be without a man. So she was like, just find one that's not like him, you know. And because Wes hated Steve so much, she figured he was perfect, you know. She's like, oh yeah, that's going to be the one that gets me out of my parents' home. He's going to be completely different from my dad. Steve was still away in the Navy, and Diane graduated a semester early from high school and started college at a Bible college in California, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Bible college or not, Diane was...
Oh, Bible.
Bible.
Yeah. I think I said bio, like biology.
Oh, no. Bible.
I was getting ready to ask if she wanted to be like a science teacher or something.
No. No. She could go to college, but just the Bible college, yeah. Bible college or not, Diane was untethered and unsupervised for the first time in her life, and she was kicked out after 2 semesters for promiscuity. Waiting for Steve or not. She wasn't waiting for Steve for everything. Diane went back to Phoenix and worked a couple jobs until Steve was back from the Navy. The pair worked together constantly, or at least as much as they could be, under Wes's surveillance of his daughter's movements. So she's over 18 now, but she's living under his roof, and this man is like tracking where she's going. She's got
Life 360.
Yeah, OG. Yeah. So due to the way she was raised, it never seemed to occur to Diane that she could work, move out of her parents' home, and support herself. Like I said, Diane was convinced she needed a man. Like, that never came into her thinking.
Yeah.
One night, Diane didn't come back from a date with Steve. An irate Wes grabbed his shotgun and went to Steve's to deliver his fundamentalist Baptist ultimatum to bring Diane home or marry her. And Steve said he'd be happy to marry Diane. Just a week later, on November 13th, 1973, Diane married her ticket out of her parents' house. Just 2 weeks after their marriage, Steve informed Diane that he had a date with another girl that night.
Oh.
But he says, well, I made the date before we got married, so I have to keep it. I don't want to be rude. She pressed his pants. She, ironed his outfit for his date.
Oh, my God. She was a good wife.
Just for a little bit here. Yeah. Steve didn't return until 3 a.m. the next morning, saying he had car troubles. Mm-hmm. Diane learned very quickly her mistake in marrying Steve. Steve loved hanging out with his buddies, hot rod cars, and other women, but never Diane. Steve,
Why did he even bother to marry her, then? What was the point of that?
No idea. Was he just did not take it seriously at all? Why get the government involved? Why?
So it's one thing if he really loved her and wanted to be with her. That was in the way because the dad was getting in the way, but he didn't even want to fucking be with her.
No,
why?
It's so weird.
God.
So strange. So Diane decided she'd make sure she always had someone who would love her, and this becomes a running theme in Diane's life, and it's gross. And she threw out her birth control pills without telling Steve. She was pregnant within a month. One thing we'll learn about Diane, she is a fertile myrtle. This bitch. Men can look at her and she'll be like, oh.
This one's twins.
Yeah, Diane be getting pregnant. So her father may have hurt her. Her mother never protected her, and Steve didn't love her, but she was convinced the one thing, a magical thing she could do to feel whole and loved for the first time in her life was to have a baby. One thing to note, when Diane talks about having children, she always says it is so she had someone to love her. She never once talks about children in the respect that saying she wants to love them.
Yeah.
Never.
It's a one-sided love. She wants to love from them, but she doesn't want to give it out.
She's like, I will be unconditionally loved. There's never this like thought process to like, I have to care for these things I keep, like it's crazy. So, Christiane was a cheerful, easygoing baby, but her perfect presence did not help her parents' marriage. Diane says Steve had turned out to be exactly like her domineering father. All he did was boss her around, make her cook, and when it went really bad, choke her and throw her around the house like a rag doll. So things are terrible. And I guess Christiane was just this perfect little angel. She was cheerful. She never cried. Like, she was just, this perfect little thing in this absolute chaos. So, poor thing. After Christy arrived, Diane worked part-time, but it barely covered sitter fees. Diane's grand plans for her life were not happening. She was always smart, so she had always wanted to get an education. She wanted to be a doctor, and she wanted to have lots of money and a big house. Like, that's how she saw her life going. And all of those things got worse.
And then she got kicked out of Bible school.
Right.
Bible college.
Then things got worse. Steve would regularly throw her out, and she and Christy, and essentially they were just vagabonds. Like, during this time, they were traveling by bus to her parents whenever she and Steve were on the outs. So
he even kicked his own daughter out.
Steve sucks. Like, he's not great.
Yeah, he does.
He doesn't. Yeah, he's not great. They're just two terrible people that met. It's awful. So so Diane would say later of this time, like, we were just as home, felt at home in a bus waiting station as we would at our house or something. So during one brief reconciliation, though, Diane became pregnant again. Let's have another baby. Just as with the first child, the second one did not fix their marriage.
What? That's weird.
I bet you didn't see that coming.
I bet number 3 will.
Wait till you hear about number 3. Steve was furious that it seemed Diane had tricked him into getting her pregnant again. She had said that she was taking her birth control. Another one of Diane's favorite things to do is say, I'm taking birth control. She's hardly ever taking birth control, i.e., just everyone should know that. He said as her due date neared that he may be happy if the baby was a boy. He was like, I guess. The baby was a girl. Cheryl Lynn Downs was born on January 10th, 1976. Cheryl, the poor thing, disappointed her father from the jump by not being a boy, and she disappointed her mother by being the exact opposite from her calm older sister.
Oh, she was colicky and crying and everything.
Colicky, yeah. Diane said later that Cheryl started crying from the time her shoulders were out of the birth canal and didn't stop for a year. Cheryl was like, I'm here. I have been retaining all the stress you're going through, and now you have to hear about it. Diane and Steve decided not to have any more kids, and that one of them needed to get fixed. Steve's procedure was only $35. But these two wouldn't have any luck if they didn't have bad luck, and Diane was pregnant soon after the procedure. Steve, who didn't really like Diane, accused her of cheating, and she held firm. She was not running around on him. Sure enough, Steve went back to the clinic to get checked and informed him that his swimmers were as potent as ever.
His swimmers were a-swimming.
Yeah. So the first procedure was not successful. He had another one, and Diane had an abortion. She was like, we can't have another kid right now. She said later, I had too much stress. What if this baby came out and it was just like Cheryl crying all the time? It wouldn't have been loved. And I was like, damn, Diane, like, I guess keep it real. So over the next 2 years, Steve and Diane would fight. Diane would flee with the girls, and then they would all get back together. It was toxic day one. It was so bad. So yeah, they were trauma bonded. It seemed like they had been together since they were like 16 and 17 and just couldn't be without each other either, I guess. And it's so bad. So, and there were 2 little girls stuck in the middle. So it was not a great thing. So 2 years after her abortion, Diane, who at the time had not seemed affected at all by having the procedure, was now haunted by the child she had gotten rid of. Like, she said something to the effect that she went I don't know, she saw something on TV, and she was made to believe that when she had her abortion, the baby was nothing but like mucus. And then she learned 2 years later that it would have been more. And she was that was like her whole personality now by being torn up by this decision. So Diane did what Diane did best. She planned to get pregnant to repent for the child she had done away with. She was nice enough to ask Steve first, her husband, to be the father, asking him to have his vasectomy reversed, and astonished Steve said no.
Yeah, we got a vasectomy for a reason.
Yeah, no, what the fuck, Diane? So, at this time, Steve and Diane were both working for a company that made mobile homes. And after Steve's rejection, Diane set out each day to find the perfect specimen for her baby daddy. She said later, I watch people I work with. I pick someone who is attractive, healthy, not abusive of drugs or alcohol, strong bone structure. It was really clinical, she said later. At 23 years old, Diane picked 19-year-old Russ Phillips to be her sperm donor. The young man was flattered by her attention because Diane is she's still young. She's, again, I said striking. She's, got a great figure. And so this young man is like, okay. And she got him into bed and was pregnant by the time they had ended their first date.
Did he know that she was trying to get pregnant?
No.
Okay, so he just thought that she was just like...
I don't think in any of her pregnancies, the man was a willing participant. Even with Steve, he was like, damn it, what?
You're on birth control.
Yeah, so Steve, the habitual womanizer, figured out Diane had the young sperm donor and busted down the door one morning while Diane was in bed with Russ. He only stopped beating Russ's ass when his roommates pulled a gun on Steve. Which, again, it's like, you guys are so fucking toxic. Like, you hate Diane.
You married her and then went on a date.
Yes.
We're still trying to figure out why you even married her.
Right.
But why does she keep going back to him?
I know. Yeah, it's the whole... I'm like, oh my God. Jerry Springer. Motherfuckers. So, the new baby growing in her, Diane stayed married to Steve, who knew damn well that baby wasn't his. Diane could have left him, but her strong Baptist roots held firm in some ways, and she just had to be married when she gave birth. So apparently her Baptist roots didn't say, don't cheat on your husband. But okay. By the time she was 5 months along, Steve was going to appointments with her to support her and listed himself as the baby's father on hospital paperwork. So Steve's like, I got you, girl. Fucking weirdos.
This can't be a bastard baby.
Yeah. Stephen... Danny Downs was a beautiful baby boy born on December 29th, 1979, with a head of wheat-colored hair, and Steve adored the boy from the second the nurse handed him over.
So the kid that actually isn't even his.
He actually is like,
love this one.
Yeah. Crazy. So Diane had felt so whole and exultant while pregnant, and if she had it her way, she'd be pregnant all the time. She may have had been good at being pregnant, but she wasn't good at being a mother at all.
Wouldn't it be amazing if you could just be pregnant and never had the kid though?
Oh, I was not good pregnant. I was miserable. I'd hate it.
I don't know. I feel like...
Like some people are like glowing and yeah.
I did get hot though.
Did you? Oh my God. Yeah. It was June when it was warm when I was pregnant with Austin, and just that 1 month I was like, I do not know how women are like doing this all this summer. Oh my God. So she quit breastfeeding Danny 2 weeks after because it was hurting her nipples and she was worried that it was making her boobs look bad. So she was like, I'm not gonna have saggy boobs so this kid can eat. Danny was a bit of a sickly baby. He was rail thin and no fat on him. Others worried, but not Diane. And she was correct. Danny was a fat little guy by the time he was a toddler. He was happy and cheerful, and his little personality made people gravitate towards him. I guess he was just a light. So he was a wonderful little kid. But Diane was once again coming down from her high of being pregnant and was severely depressed. Her and Steve would rage into the night and he would beat her. Finally, Diane decided to channel some of that rage and hit back. But unfortunately, it wasn't Steve that she was hitting. Oh,
yeah, I was going to say.
I know. I was like, when I was rich, I was like, yeah. But no, she was hitting her children. Christy and Cheryl were so confused. One minute, their mom would be playing with them, buying them pets, getting them pretty little outfits, and they'd all go and get their family picture taken. The next minute, their mother would be screaming at them, spanking them, slapping them, and they often had no idea why. So these poor little kids were just absolutely terrorized just the way Cheryl said, or Diane said she had grown up, but it seems like it was far worse even. So, little Danny got the least amount of abuse, but Cheryl was often singled out by her mother and got the lion's share of the verbal and physical abuse. And what could have been an echo of her father, Wes, Diane would tell people, if something is broken, Cheryl did it. It's always Cheryl. Yeah. And
Cheryl was the middle kid. Don't cry.
and Cheryl looks just like Steve.
Oh.
And Christy looks like Diane, and Danny looks like his sperm donor. So in April of 1980, Diane would see a daytime talk show that had a segment about surrogacy. Diane perked right up and wrote to the group in Kentucky, the surrogacy group, and was featured on the show. She wrote to them the very next day to express her interest in being a surrogate mother. She was like, I'm so good at being pregnant. I'm the one. Being pregnant all the time, get paid for it, and not have to take care of the child afterwards. Seemed like a sweet deal to Diane. Diane lied almost continuously in her letter to the company. On paper, she looked like the prime candidate, and the process was set into motion almost immediately. They were like, she's perfect. She signed the contracts, and then there was the next step, the psych evals. The first psychiatrist Diane met with in Kentucky in December of 1980 had doubts about Diane being a surrogate almost from the beginning of the interview. He was like, red flag, red flag.
Oh, I wonder what he asked her.
I'm like,
to be a fly on that wall.
Yeah. She was given a battery of psychological tests and was deemed not suitable to be a surrogate. The Kentucky clinic didn't tell Diane that she had flunked, and she actually was soaring high thinking that she had wowed them because she's pretty much a true narcissist where she's like, I'm the best and everything. The clinic,
I think she'd be smart enough to know how to pass a psyche eval.
Yeah, I think the problem is people think they are, and then that's what takes them. They're like, oh, got this. Like, so they didn't tell them, and they didn't tell Diane, and the clinic decided to try again and told Diane it was routine to have testing done twice. They were like, she failed again, but still somehow, after failing, she was kind of like green-lighted and was accepted into the surrogacy program and was given the green light for insemination. Okay.
Are they using her eggs?
No.
They're implanting an egg, right?
It would be her. So they were inseminating her with just the father. So the mother wasn't. Yeah.
Oh.
So Diane has. Yeah. Well, she's got lots of babies. We'll find out. Yeah.
Lots of babies, but also those lots of babies could possibly have whatever mental illness she's obviously has.
Yes. It's bad all around. Since Danny's birth, Diane had been carrying on sporadically with Russ Phillips, Danny's dad. She wouldn't even put his name on Danny's birth certificate, but she would let him babysit Danny.
Did he know that was his kid?
Yeah, no, he knew.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was like, can I see the child? And she's like, no.
You can babysit him while I go to the movies, though.
And her other children. She was like, also, here's these other ones. Russ would frequently ask Diane to marry him. And she would just string him along saying, maybe, but you have to follow these very specific rules if I was to even consider it. Which was like, you can't drink, you can't date other people. Yeah, so...
fuck that.
I know!
And you can't date other people if you're married?
Yeah! Diane, what?
Not for me.
Yeah, so he just didn't do anything that might upset Diane, so... But the roommate, who lived with Russ and would kind of like see this whole thing folding, and she was just like, what the fuck? Russ, what are you doing? The roommate felt even worse for Diane's children, who were essentially forgotten now that Diane was on her surrogacy journey. She farmed the children out to babysitters, or if babysitters could not be found, just left them at home for long stretches. And I mean, Cheryl's 5, maybe, at this point. No, Christy Ann would be 5. And that's the oldest one. So she was just like... Cheryl still felt most of Diane's rage. The one day while at Russ's, his roommate caught her jumping on the bed, and the roommate told the girl to stop. I don't want you to get hurt. And the dejected little girl sat down on the edge of the bed and asked the roommate if she had a gun. Again, Cheryl is probably like 4 at this time. Yeah, maybe Cheryl's. Anyways. Oh, she's 5 years old. So Christiane would have been 6, I think. Anyways. Do you have a gun? This 5-year-old asks. Of course not. Why would you ask a thing like that? The roommate says. And Cheryl told her that she should just shoot herself. Her mom says she's very bad. Cheryl's 5.
Oh.
5. It's heartbreaking.
Wow.
Yes. Again, Diane was stringing along Russ at this time, but one day while doing the laundry, she found a woman's phone number in Steve's jeans. And she said she wanted her fucking divorce now. And Steve was like, okay, and moved out. Like, I guess she just needed a reason. So Diane would now embark on a quest to bed every man in the post office that she worked at. Over the next year and a half, she would have affairs with 6 men that she worked with. And in the midst of all this, she'd leave the kids at home, Cheryl often having to beg neighbors for food as she wandered the streets of Chandler, Arizona with no shoes on.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like, Cheryl would just be like, hello. Diane also during
DFS a thing back then?
Yeah, it should have been. Yeah. And one of her neighbors is like, well, obviously I was feeding Cheryl and I could just see her wandering around the streets. And so I didn't want to be a narc and like get the authorities involved. So I just wrote a letter to Diane, and Diane came over and yelled at her. And then the lady just ended up being like these kids' surrogate mother during this time. All while, again, Diane is carrying a baby as a surrogate mother. But she's fucking everybody. Because,
hey, okay.
Yeah, Diane would later describe this period as the most stable of her life, but it was more of her sowing her wild oats. She left her children at home to meet up with men and slept with whomever she felt like and as much as she liked because she couldn't get pregnant. So Diane was living it up during this time. Her flings weren't the only thing that was making Diane feel good. Diane finally felt for the first time in her life that she was on this earth for a purpose. By being a surrogate mother. For most of her life, thoughts of her purpose on this earth were, they plagued her. In her adolescence, she wondered if she had just been put here so her dad could be mean to her. In her marriage, she wondered if she had just been put here to be abused by Steve. But now, carrying a baby that would make a family whole, Diane was finally sure she found her true purpose. And she would also be sure that throwing herself into the surrogacy world would make her dreams of grandeur come true, especially when she would see other surrogate mothers being interviewed on national TV. She was like, we're gonna come calling.
Oh, she was just waiting for her time in the spotlight.
Mm-hmm. These ideas that she was on her way up were cemented for Diane when the Washington Post came knocking and wanted to feature Diane in an article about surrogacy. Diane looked like a princess in her photos that accompanied the article. She's very prim, she's beautiful, and she's just got this sweet little growing belly. It's full on display. The reporter gave the bulk of the article featuring Diane, and later the reporter would admit, sounding annoyed at herself, that she focused on Diane because she seemed far more mature than the other 2 surrogate mothers that were featured in the article. That did not age well. So, yeah, I guess Diane could really turn it on and off sometimes because this woman was like, she seems so mature. And Diane gave birth to a baby girl on May 8th, 1982. The adoptive mother holding Diane's hand throughout the labor, tears streaming down her face as she repeatedly told Diane, thank you, as Diane pushed the baby out. But in the days that followed, when the parents weren't in the hospital, Diane would ask a nurse to take her to the nursery to see and hold the child. The nervous nurse would stand by Diane as she looked at the newborn like hungrily. I can't say that. In Kentucky, where Diane had given birth, even if Diane had signed a contract, Diane had 5 days to terminate her parentage after the baby was born. And so this nurse is like, thankfully, Diane chose money over the baby and left Kentucky
oh my God.
after 5 days. 10 grand in her pocket. I know. I was like, Diane, don't. Back in Phoenix, Diane used some of her baby-making money to put a down payment on a new double-wide and moved her children into a new neighborhood on the edge of town, away from the neighbors who fed her children and took them in when they roamed the streets. The summer of 1982 could have been a turning point for the better for Diane. She had a new home. She had her children. No fucking Steve anymore. Steve, and some money in her pocket. But Diane was going to Diane, and she started making the wrong choices almost from the jump. Diane's like, let's get crazy with it. So her request to bed every guy at work kicked up a notch, and she went through 3 of them in June of that summer, a month after she had given birth.
Wow.
Sounds like a nightmare.
She's nasty.
Yeah. Diane, none of them just seemed to have like a great hold on Diane, and she was on to the next one without pause in between. Like, she was like, bye, had a great time. But Diane's marathon flings were about to come to a screeching halt during July of that summer. And one man would become her entire world, her main focus, her obsession. He was perfect. Except...
He's married.
Oh, yeah. They're all married. Except for the fact that he didn't want kids. And that is where we're going to stop for part 1.
Damn it.
Thank you so much for listening to Storyteller. Thank you for all your love on the Butte episode. It's been popping off, and we just really appreciate it because it's a Montana story, and we're from Montana. So, yeah, it's great.
We really like the dimple knees.
I love the dimple knees. Oh, my gosh. So, yeah, thank you so much for listening to Storyteller. Tell your friends. Join us on Instagram.
Oh, wait. Storyteller.pod.
TikTok at
StorytellerPod.
Facebook
at Storyteller Podcast.
Nice. And be sure to follow, like, comment, and download the podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you'd like to support our show so we can keep making amazing podcasts, there's a link in our show notes where you can buy us a coffee, support us, whatever. We would...
Wait, they can buy us coffee?
Well,
buy us K-pop donuts.
K-pop donut hunters. They're so good. There's a site called Buy Me a Coffee and stuff, but I think ours is Patron. Yeah. And we would just really appreciate it. And
like tequila?
No. I don't know.
Can they buy a shot of tequilas?
Well, we could with it, but that wouldn't be ethical.
Wow. I don't know where we're going there. Okay.
But yeah. If you feel like supporting us, I promise we'll use it on equipment. An equipment is however she gets through this. So bye.
Thank you. Bye.